Right. Well, welcome to the City Commission study session tonight. We just ask that you could, if you would please silence and turn off your cell phones, and remind everybody that our meetings are available every day for viewing on Channel 2 at 6 p.m. and midnight. And so welcome, and we'll go ahead and get started. First item tonight, which is the Leavenworth Attainable Housing Update.
Yep, we have Sister Vicky here to do some introductions as well.
You can sit up here, sister.
Oh, okay. I'll feel important.
All right.
You are important. You are important.
Okay, well, thank you for having us back today. I wanted to just kind of give you a quick update on where we are. In 2022, we bought somebody gave us one house. So we had one little house that we were operating. Currently, we manage 11 different houses. 5 of those we own. 3 were purchased with the money that the commission gave us through the ARPA grant, purchased and rehabbed. One of them is still being rehabbed. That should be about another month, and we should have that one ready to rent. We manage 6 other houses that we've entered into an agreement with them, with the owner. They keep the ownership, but we do the management and have people in our programs. So that's all really good. We're also we have started on the duplex at 728 Miami. We have a floor now, that's progress, so eventually it will get built. Cost of that is going to be about $220,000. We've also applied for a grant from the state to build some other duplexes. We applied for 4. I don't think we'll get the money for 4 because there's $21 million and ours would be $1 million by itself. So I don't think we'll get all that, but we're hoping we get money for at least 1 or 2. Should know that sometime in April. One of our houses, and this is probably the one we're most proud of, is congregate living. It's 3 guys. We were really concerned about this because congregate living is not simple. As a nun, I live in congregate living, and I know it's not simple. But these 3 guys have been phenomenal. They were all just so grateful to have a place and have worked so well together. And we watched them, our housing specialist watched them down at the shelter. He'd go down almost every day for lunch just to kind of watch and see what's going on. And he thought they'd work well together, and they truly have. It is really amazing to me how much they have done as a group, which is wonderful. We've spent probably about $71,000, I think, of the ARPA money for the buying and the rehabbing so far. And we really found that, and we didn't realize this would be the case, but it really seems to be, it's much more advantageous to buy and rehab houses than it is to build. In the first place, it's a lot cheaper. The second place, it's a lot faster. And the third place is we can help neighborhoods more in doing that. So we really are thinking we might be coming back. We're not at this point yet, but we may be coming back to you and asking, could we, instead of paying for a second duplex, could we use that money to buy other houses and rehab them? Because like in that one house, we have 3 guys living in there. In the duplexes, in one duplex, there'd be 1 person, so there's just 2 people that we get in. And it takes a long time to build, as you well know. So we may be coming back to you for that. Then I also wanted to let you know, because I've really appreciated working with you these last 10 years or so, I am going to retire April 11th. I'm very excited about that. And I wanted to introduce you to Sister Amy, who's the one that's going to be taking my place. She is a native of here, and she's a sister of charity. So I'm going to let Amy, this is Sister Amy, just tell you a little bit about her background. She's a
I think, do you want to respond to that? You look
So
like
when you say retired,
She'll still be out there working,
That's
you know.
right.
Yeah, I'll just
So
playing
you
around.
leaving
But
the
I'm
community?
going to stay here.
Okay.
And I'm going to volunteer,
okay.
you know?
Okay.
I said, I'll do the grunt work, but she can be in charge.
I got
I don't want to be in charge.
So, thank you. I just want to say, I have deep roots here in Leavenworth. My Wilcott family and the Sisters of Charity have been here for 160 years and counting. So I look forward to kind of digging in again. I've been out and about for a while and lived in Colorado and So now I am back and really appreciate how Vicki really has made a difference in the community and those that have come alongside her, and I've learned in the last few months, certainly eye-opening experiences of, really, these kind of things happen in Leavenworth, we can help. And so I look forward to working with you and learning from each of you how you can suggest we can help more, and coming to you and asking for help as well, so.
Did Sister Vicky call you and
Twist
ask
your
you to
arm.
come back? Because nobody says no to Sister Vicky.
No, I was already here, and
Yeah, she was.
I wanted to learn more, and now I can't get away from
Oh,
it, so
yeah.
here I am.
When Amy came on board, my life got 1,000% improved, so I was very grateful to her. She's going to do a great job. And I have to tell you that for me to personally look at what Miranda has been able to do at the Community of Hope, which is phenomenal,
Yeah.
and what Amy's going to do with attainable housing, which will also be phenomenal. I think that's wonderful work, and this old lady is pretty excited about it, so thank you.
And not going far, so
Not
you'll
going
still be.
I'll be
yeah.
around, but,
Well, nothing makes me happier than people come back home.
yeah.
So
right.
welcome home, welcome
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tell us about your upcoming events, because I know you have
Oh,
some,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we need to promote that here.
Well,
Yeah,
first of all,
right.
actually, we will be celebrating Vicki, and we just nailed that down today on May the 14th. We're going to have a reception at the First United Methodist Church. So I'll send information out about that, like from 4 to 6 p.m., meet and greet. And then on June the 7th, we're having the Sleep Out and Festival Evening of Hospitality. So for those who don't want to sleep out, I would do that. We're going to have a meal, learn more about Leavenworth Attainable Housing, hear from our residents, hear from people who are impacted by the work that we do, and just, again, community building, which is certainly what our residents need, and I think what we all need to maintain a wonderful community, so.
Yeah, and I think the dinner, will have tickets on sale probably starting in May, so that people can buy the
Same
tickets.
location at the
Uh-huh,
church?
At
it
the
is,
church,
but we're going to have a
yes.
lot of different activities, different churches sponsoring.
Like a carnival kind of
Good.
Yeah.
thing, and
Yeah, it was
It'll
great
be
last
kind of
year.
fun.
I enjoyed hearing from the residents.
Yeah,
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
we're going to have one of the guys talk this year that's in the congregate living, so.
How many bedrooms is there? Do they have their own rooms in the,
They
in
do,
that?
they each have.
Oh, that's good.
They
That's good.
share living room, kitchen, bathroom,
So,
but
yeah.
they each have their own room. And they really take care of each other. That's the
That's really
beauty of it.
good.
It's just, it's amazing. Okay.
One other question, any question? The timeline, is it transitional? Is there a certain length
No,
of time that
it's-
they can stay?
Our program is permanent,
Okay.
permanent supportive housing.
Okay.
And like Chris goes in every single week and meets with every single resident. That's why it works. Because the houses we know, because he goes into the house, so we know the houses are taken care of.
Yeah.
They set the goals, and we have a lot of follow-up on that.
Okay.
So it really, it's working.
That's good,
Slow.
appreciate it. Thank
Takes
you.
a little longer to build the community part, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but the other part's really working well.
How many families do you have in the houses now?
10, I think.
10
I'd have to
families.
stop it. They're all
Isn't that
families
amazing?
except one. So I guess it'd be 9 families.
I was thinking back to when we're talking about the sleep out and different things,
Yeah.
but I was thinking back to when I was a kid. I don't remember seeing homeless, but I know that people camped out in houses that were vacant. And we
Yeah.
had vacant houses, and
Right.
where I grew up in North Leavenworth, we had vacant houses there, and I know people camped out in them. And so I know there was homeless, but we just didn't
Yeah.
see it as clearly
Well,
as what
and-
we do now.
Until we can provide adequate housing, you're never going to deal very much with the homeless.
True.
I
think
just
that's
helped
true.
a guy, he's not in our program, but I helped him move into a one-room, not a one-bedroom, a one-room basement house that he pays $750 a
That's
month.
ridiculous.
That's wrong,
Yeah.
we've got to do something about this.
Yeah,
That's
the
one of
rent
the things I'm
rent
going to
is
play
so
with
high.
in retirement is
Yeah.
getting people together to do something with that. Ed?
Sister Vicky, Really? You're gonna retire? Or do you have some other project?
I don't have a project in mind.
Well, good, enjoy the retirement.
I will.
And be careful of those people who wanna tell you congratulations, you're gonna have so much more time on your hands. Now, here's what you should do with it.
Right. Well, a lot of that.
Become a
Thank
big-
you.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you
guys
so
very
much.
for all you
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Sister.
Bye.
Thank you.
Alrighty, we'll move on to item 2, which is our Big Brothers Big Sisters update.
We have Mary Shannon.
Well, hello.
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 Okay, I'm gonna see if I know how to do this.
It's the PDF.
That would be the wrong one.
Police Department, yeah.
Are you gonna help? No, I'm not with the police. Not on the good side, anyway.
There it is.
All right, thank you. And then I just click that little thing. Do you like my technical terms? I click that little thing? So today is day 2 in Leavenworth for me, and I have had a blast. There have also been some very soulful moments. I went and had a little tour of the Buffalo Soldier Museum, and that was a tough one. But the more time that I'm here, the more of a sense of community that I get, and I'm just really grateful that we have a program here. So I've prepared a few comments. As a refresher, just that reminder, because it's been a while since we visited, that we are the one-to-one mentoring, fully case-managed program here in Leavenworth. And so everything that we're measuring is for safety, for quality, and for long-term outcomes. So over a year ago, we had no idea when we were initially broached by then Mayor Jermaine Wilson and this city council how really remarkable this community is. I mean, it's been a little mind-bending. Holly Pittman began with us midway through the summer of 2023. Actually, it was a little more than midway. And although typical training lasts 90 days for program staff, she is not typical for anyone who knows Holly, and I mean that in good ways. When partnered with the rest of our Kansas Big Brothers Big Sisters staff, which is about 70 of us statewide, she has blown through past records. Literally, Leavenworth set a record for an upstart. I mean, it has been phenomenal. She blew through that training really quickly. She made 10 new matches in several short months. In fact, and look at me, I moved it. Oh, there.
You did it.
So our original match goal, because remember, it's 90 days of training, so for the remainder of that year, since she started over halfway through the year, we had set a match goal of 4. Yeah, she made 10 new matches by December 31 of 2023. Mind-blowing. Now, to give you an idea of what that entails, this represents not only the training that she went through, but also 120 hours minimum of intake, just intake for the youth and volunteer. It also represents in that first year nearly 400 hours of case management. I mean, when y'all said you were ready, no joke, y'all were ready. So this, along with the recruitment of volunteers, getting the messaging out there that we were ready to intake youth, and a whole host of other duties has kept Holly, and by extension, her team that is based in Lawrence, really busy. Thanks to this city council and the community and their advocacy, that reminder that we were granted funds to launch the program here, and in 2023, for that half of the year when we became operational, our expenses came to about $38,000. This funding allowed us to hire Holly, pay operational expenses, and jump straight into serving youth. And I keep forgetting to advance the slides. Take a look-see. These are all Leavenworth youth. In 2024, isn't that, see, nobody went,
I
oh,
did in my
thank
heart.
you, thank you.
My heart melted. I lost
Griff,
my
I'm waiting to hear your aw. Griff's not gonna give us the aw, that's fine. All right, so in 2024, our goal is actually to make 20 new matches. Interestingly enough, our current wait list of youth here that have signed up for a mentor and been referred is 20. What that means also is that on a weekly basis, we're getting new kids referred to us, and that pipeline just continues to grow. So we've got to continue to make those matches and find more volunteers. Because a full-time case manager average caseload is 40 to 50, we will begin fundraising here to meet the need to add another employee. as although Holly's pretty awesome, she also has her limits. Once we raise additional funds, we'll be able to continue to grow the program in sustainable ways, continuing that work through one-to-one mentorship. I have gone on a campaign really for the last 7, 8 months, and anytime I open my mouth, these two statistics just fall out, so bear with me. But I do think that they are statistics worth sharing with you all. First, although Kansas ranks as the 37th least populated state in our nation, we have the 10th highest suicide rate of youth ages 15 to 24. Think about that, the 10th highest suicide rate of youth ages 15 to 24. And folks, since the pandemic, the hospitalization rates of youth ages, get this, 6 to 12. Hospitalization rate since the pandemic of youth ages 6 to 12 has doubled for those being hospitalized for suicidal ideation. And so these are the statistics that are driving me, our board of directors, our community leadership councils, our team members to go further, to really not only serve the youth that we're currently serving extraordinarily well, but to pull more kids off of our waiting lists. We know that this program works. Holly, I did not have a chance to share this with any staff member yet. You're the first, but I'll share it with this city council. Our board doesn't even know this yet. But a research analyst from Harvard is getting ready to release a study that says that based upon, and this has been a long-term longitudinal study that he's done, not affiliated, he's not affiliated with Big Brothers Big Sisters in any way other than to do this research, that to say that for the investment of dollars that is poured into our program, because it is expensive to do a case-managed one-to-one mentorship program, that those dollars are fully recovered on average within 7 years. So it is significant. These are not dollars that are being flushed down the toilet. They are being invested in extraordinary ways. So with that, I just really want to continue to say thank you. Look at this. Look at this. All of this just simply to say that someone outside of their usual household is showing up and they are their person. And the extraordinary outcomes statistically that we can continue to prove on the impact of human relationship is remarkable, but it should come as no surprise to anyone sitting in this room, because you are where you are because of human connection and mentorship.
Amen.
That's it. That's all I got. So hit me. What questions do you have?
Great presentation.
I'm still waiting for an awe from Griff. I'm going to be waiting for a while.
It's taken a while, so
Good deal.
I
We're
appreciate the.
we're glad you're
stats.
here. We're glad you're here.
Oh, it's been such a blessing. And in every board meeting, our board wants to hear about how's Leavenworth. And so it's been really fun for them as well. So,
You know, Holly's been out there for me, trying to get, meet that challenge, and it's,
yeah.
I'm gonna recruit Sister Vicky.
yeah.
Well, and Sister Amy too, I hit
Oh,
her up
Sister-
while she
Sister
came over.
Amy, yeah, Sister
We
Amy.
were in a meeting
She's
earlier
retired.
together, so, yeah. But,
Yes, definitely want to say thank you for taking time out to come and give us an update.
Of
and
course.
Appreciate it. It was great connecting with you
Yeah.
earlier today, and I'm glad you got a chance to experience Leavenworth. And feel free to come and, move here if you want to.
you know what, I actually love Leavenworth, and I'm gonna be back in June, the early part of June. And so my time here, I mean, I've learned so much about not only the history of Leavenworth, but the people are
Yeah.
really awesome, and you have good food. I've had Korean.
Yeah.
I had just a little bit of Caribbean earlier. But the people here are just remarkable. So y'all
Where
are
do you
very
live, in
blessed.
Topeka?
No, I'm based in Wichita,
Wichita.
but I'm home about 1 week a month. So, yeah, so I should probably give up my house and just do, I don't know, hostels, something, but yeah, live in my car. Any other questions or comments?
No, I can imagine with the new city on everybody's radar, it probably does get a lot of attention on your guys' side. So, yeah, I would say definitely keep up the good work, and thank you for sharing tonight.
Yeah, it's fun. This has been amazing, so. Yeah, yes, sir.
What's your next town?
So here's the deal. We are often invited to extend our programs into other towns, but we are very careful. We are going to go slowly and cautiously, because what we want to do is we want to ensure that the towns that we do have are sustainable first. We have made that commitment to Leavenworth, just as Leavenworth has made that commitment to us. So I'm not even talking about the next town yet, because I want us to get it right and focus where we are now. Talk to me in a year. Ask me that in a year.
How many towns do we have in Kansas that are in Big Brothers Big Sisters?
Yeah, so right now, we cover, out of all of the counties, keep in mind that Salina, Garden City, and Johnson Wyandotte belong to other Big Brothers Big Sisters
Okay.
affiliates. So Kansas has the opportunity to be in all of those other counties. Currently, we have 15 offices, actually now 16 offices, but those offices also cover other surrounding counties, because we don't need the high,
Yeah, west,
the high
west.
operational expenses of an office in every county. So right now, we're covering about 60 of those counties.
Good,
Yeah.
good, good.
So
That's
it's,
good.
we have great people. I mean, I'm so blessed, blessed more than you can imagine, so,
That's good.
yeah.
Great job, Polly.
Oh, thank you.
Any update? Can you mind sharing with us your experience and what's the need for, any mentors you're looking for still?
We are definitely looking for male big brothers. You had a back, that's a lot to ask you.
Yeah.
But if you back up, you see most of our matches are females, are big sisters. And so if there's anyone out there and the city is interested to be a big brother, we're definitely in need for that.
And the reminder on that is, you can be a big as an individual or as a couple or as a family, right? And so if you're a couple or a family, that's a great way to get boys off of our waiting list. And those matches are highly successful. And just blend them into things that you typically do with your own kids. It's easy. It really is easy, but very beneficial.
And the case management piece that she says is so important, because we check up on these families every single month. And through the check-in, I find out that they're hungry, that they don't have food, that they don't have basic needs. And so that's kind of where, we step in and do the connections. We're able to get them food, to get them clothes, to get them a bicycle, things like that may need. They want to play sports, to get them a softball, baseball mitt, things like that. So transportation and that case management is so key that
Holly, would you mind sharing the story that you shared with me about entering someone's home and helping them with the situation? Can you share that?
Well,
Without naming names?
well, it's just, I find that some of these people, when they don't have money for food, they do other things. So they start renting out their bedrooms for money, because they don't have money to buy food. So to not so great people, and the kids are scared when the people they don't know are in the room. So I kind of had to go in and be a little bit of a heavy and be like, you don't belong here, get out. So, and once they know someone's looking out they get a little scared and they run. But it's just so important that these kids have somebody else, this mentor, and then a mentor's case management looking after them to help out. A couple times I've had to call the city for advice, like, what do I do? So those connections to the community are so important.
Yeah. The case management is no joke. It is extensive and it is important, very important.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, y'all. I've got to head to Manhattan, so I'm going to skedaddle, but it was nice seeing
Yep,
everyone.
safe travels.
Safe travels.
All right, we're going to move on to item 3, the food truck pilot program.
Yes.
It's going to get me hungry. I haven't eaten dinner yet.
Yeah, I know. It's dinner time.
I should bring snacks every time we talk about food trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the city has been looking at rule changes for food trucks. This was most recently from a request from Wilcott Brewing. But we've also had other requests from downtown businesses in recent years. We received a survey in January that had 1,500 responses, and it was overwhelming support for exploring the concept. We also received specific feedback in the survey, both from those in favor and those who were opposed to changing our food truck regulations regarding locations, parking, trash pickup, health permits, and other concerns. And then we did specific outreach to restaurants in in February, and that feedback was presented to the commission last month. And the result was feedback that we wanted to explore a pilot program. So something on a limited basis that took into account the feedback that we had received. So the result of the last 4 months is the drafted food truck pilot program that was included in your packet and is presented to you tonight for your feedback. In putting this together, I would say it's become obvious that there really isn't a one-size-fits-all that's going to be sort of readily found. But the pilot program, as drafted, does provide greater flexibility than what currently exists in the ordinance. And before I get into a few slides, I just want to point to the current ordinances. I know we talked about this at the first study session. So what's in the current city ordinance is food trucks cannot park on city-owned property, and that is parking lots, alleys, on-street parking lots. However, it does allow for city areas to be used with approval by the city manager. So that's also included in that same ordinance. So in some ways, that makes sense if, as an example, the city manager want to approve a one-time food truck in the city hall parking lot for an event. That seems like that's allowed by ordinance, and that would make some sense. The trouble with some of the requests we've gotten lately is it's not necessarily so cut and dried, and we know there's multiple stakeholders impacted. So that's really where it's appropriate to come back to the commission and get clarity on that. So that's really where we get to the drafted pilot program. So as drafted, this would be the sponsoring local business that would apply for and receive the permit. So the food truck itself wouldn't apply for the permit. In essence, the permit is to allow on-street parking in up to 2 parking spaces in the downtown. And that's a GIS map. The red area, I know it's a little small, shows the downtown. You can kind of get an understanding of, our 28 block downtown. And the red is where this would be allowed, so an on-street parking adjacent to those businesses. So that would be some of the limitations on location. Proposed days and times are Saturday noon to midnight and Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday noon to 1 a.m. Those items were proposed on here partially to correspond with noise ordinances. So that's why it's till midnight on Saturday and 11 on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. The selected days were also an attempt to, in some ways, limit what was allowed. So it wasn't 7 days a week, 12 hours every day. That would seem more regular. And we also looked at other city ordinances, and you recall some of the other cities had it where they were trying to use food trucks to encourage activity in currently quiet areas. So that's why the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I mean, that's certainly, it's fairly subjective. So it's really Saturday through Tuesday, but it was some effort to have care with the current level of foot traffic into restaurants, and this adding to activity and not detracting from current restaurant activity.
So that's 11 p.m., right?
Not AM, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, PM. That is a typo.
Is it 11?
So it would be noon
Okay,
to 11
11
p.m. and Saturday noon to midnight.
Okay. I'm sure it says that in here too.
And then most of the rest of the language in here is already in city ordinance. It's in city ordinance in the food truck areas. So it was included in this. Does require written permission from restaurants within 100 feet. Again, this is required currently if they use private parking. So this is just when they use city public parking that we would also require that. So that would be restaurants within 100 feet would need to submit written permission.
Is that some sort of a form that's already existing, or?
We don't. It's written that they have to provide the written permission when they receive their the mobile food vendor permit. That's how that works. So
Okay, so just a note.
we don't have a form.
Sure.
We're just looking for confirmation that the
Yeah.
restaurant is in agreement and doesn't have any issues. And then kind of referring back to what we currently have in place, this is the mobile food vendor license. So any participating food trucks would need to comply with all of our regulations. So that includes, inspections from the fire department, that's health permits, that's food sanitary handling requirements. So all of those would stay in place. As I mentioned earlier, we currently have 7 food trucks that do have mobile food vendor licenses. So it's possible some of them might participate in this. It really didn't seem to matter which mobile food vendors or which food trucks were participating. This is really designed to set the space that they can park in and not say whether this is food truck A or food truck B. That would be up to the business to make sure whatever food truck that they pick has the mobile food vendor permit. And then it does include public safety criteria. The public safety criteria really is not anything new. This is what is already in either Chapter 44, which is the traffic and parking regulations the city has, or this is what's already in the mobile food vendor in limiting how they can operate. So what it currently says is, this is kind of a very practical approach. You can't block the sidewalk, you can't block alleys, you can't block ADA access or ADA parking. As written, we incorporated that into the pilot program just for clarity, just so no one could say we weren't familiar with what that looked like. And these are pretty standard rules, so hopefully it's not a surprise, but it is incorporated into the pilot program. As written in ordinance as well, the police department does have the authority if there is an issue. So if for some reason, and we don't expect this to happen, but if there were to be an issue where a line of people were lining the sidewalk and something was in the way of something we have to keep open in the right of way, the police department does have the authority to request a food truck to move. So we're not really adding anything new. They already have that authority. We're just making sure everyone knows that's what's already available. So I would say the goal is that there's a thorough review before the city manager would approve this. So it'll go through a review process that's similar to our special events process, include police and fire in the city clerk's office, the city manager, and really, we're looking at, do we have a construction coming up that we know there's going to be detours for? That's accounted for. We want to make sure before we say yes to this, that it seems to make sense. And that's one of the issues we found in looking at this is we have a large downtown. So in some ways, we don't know who's going to request to park a food truck in front of their business until they send that in. And we go through that process to say, is this something that is workable? Oops, and I'll go back to, I would note, as written, the city manager would have the ability to approve it or deny based on the criteria in the policy. And as well, if we get feedback from police and fire, hey, we're not gonna be able to fit a fire truck past that. Or, it's gonna be on a case-by-case basis. We don't have any specifications as far as road width, but it's gonna really be, come ask the city, go through the process, and we'll see if this makes sense. So we want to see this happen. We want folks to take advantage of the program, but in some ways there have to be some practical reviews and limitations on it. So that's what we've tried to do here. We would say that if the city manager does deny the application, those denials are going to be final for now as part of the pilot program, but then we'll learn. So if we're looking at doing an ordinance update in the future, if we want to extend the pilot program, we'll say, hey, here's the ones that were denied, here's what they were asking for, and we can look at, is that something we want to incorporate in a future update, or is that a reason to say, hey, no, that's a safety consideration, we want to clarify that for future reference.
Why are you only doing 7 permits?
The thought was we want to have enough to gather some data, we want to have that experience. And that could be 7 individual businesses, each having a permit for a one-day food truck in front of their business. That could be one business having 2 permits, it allows for that. It allows for longer-term parking, so one of those 7 permits could be a business that says, I want to do food truck parking at my establishment for a Saturday afternoon event every day in July. So it provides some flexibility for a one-time event, some regularly scheduled event, and a little bit of more regular food truck parking, which had been the original Wilcott request, was to look at something more predictable.
So if Wilcott wanted to have one in May, June, July, Does that count as 3 different permits, or is that just one because that's just them?
So what will be allowed is they could submit one permit, and if they knew that schedule, they could say, here's what we're requesting, here's the location, here's the timeframes, and we could look at that as one. If they say, okay, well, we submitted for, let's say, 2 months, June and July, and we now realize we want to have that either additional days or another day, they could do up to 2 permits. So in some ways, it does require the businesses to do a little bit of
Strategic.
planning. So they could say, I want to try a one-day event and get a permit for that, and then if we still have permits available, they could do another one.
But
So
it's not based per,
Per
so,
day.
yeah, so like if one month he wants to do barbecue, one month he wants to do tacos, one month those are separate, that's a separate thing, it's not.
Yep, it would be per permit. So in
Okay.
essence, you're asking for how long can I put a food truck, or how regularly, how often can I park the food truck in these spaces next to my business?
You don't care who the food truck is, because that's a separate permit through the food truck people, right?
They would have to have the regular mobile food vendor permit. So I'm not sure that, I didn't hear a lot of concern about whether it's tacos
No, but
or,
I'm-
yeah.
No, that's not our
And anything can
business.
be changed, I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
Right.
if you see, you know, so. I like the written permission part about, you know, within 100 feet. I think that gives a little bit more deference to some of the local restaurants, so.
Makes it a little more palatable to them.
A little bit more, yeah. Mhm.
Well, on Friday nights, Thursday nights are busy nights, Wednesdays, that there's no trucks, right? They're only on,
As written, it would be Saturday, Sunday,
Saturday,
Monday, and
and
Tuesday
Tuesday.
are the days allowed.
right.
I love your idea, Nancy, on the Monday option.
Monday,
because
yeah,
it's like,
so many
oh,
places
yeah.
are closed, so
Yeah,
many restaurants, and the Asian restaurants are closed on Tuesday, so. I don't know if you guys knew that.
There's one that's open.
The one on 4th Street?
Ones I went to, they were all closed,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I know. But there is one that's open.
Yeah.
We found it.
I think the only thing that I would wanna maybe look into is adding that Friday, cause I know that's a busy time for businesses. And if, you know, there's a business that wanna, you know, capitalize on that opportunity.
Wait, adding a truck?
Yeah, adding that Friday, cause I
But
think,
wouldn't that take away from the businesses? That's why we didn't do it, the downtown restaurants?
Just as much as Saturday.
yeah, I was about to
Yeah.
say Saturday.
Saturday's another busy
Any
day too.
difference.
I don't know, I just thought,
I didn't know why you picked certain days, that's what I didn't understand
I
that.
think we're
It
just
was,
trying
it
to
was
test
an
the waters.
attempt to, in some
Yeah.
ways, split the week, right? So, if the feedback from the commission was it might make more sense to go Wednesday through Saturday, we could look at that. The
I
thought
just think
was,
that ought to be flexible in what, if people are asking for. If they ask for that, I think we
Whatever
should
day.
think about,
Yeah,
you know, especially if we don't have that many applications right off the bat, you know,
it's
it's,
gonna be a lot.
it was also a little bit in response to some of the restaurant feedback that we heard.
yeah, that's what I
So
thought.
trying to look at, you know, is, as we say, a limited pilot program. Could days be one way that we're looking to set some limitations? And then if it is Saturdays and we say Saturday isn't the right day, we really need it Fridays, then we can look at some of those adjustments. So that was just an attempt to find some practical limitations for the program as a pilot.
if
I
we
see
were,
what you're saying, yeah.
if we were to turn this on and let's say, you know, I don't know if it's too early, like in April to get it turned on. I mean, we did run it for like, what, 6 months, get some good feedback until October.
now we
kinda
can
see.
figure out,
Yep.
yeah.
So as written, it would, we would start outreach April 1st. So that requires just time to get the notification, because if we're only doing 7 permits, I'd want to try to make sure that's as fair of a program as possible. So we'd want to do that outreach for a month and make sure that all the businesses who wanted to participate had the opportunity to think it over. And then open it up starting May 1st for permits going until October 31st. And so that would be a 6-month period where we would then reassess and say, is this going well? Do we want to make some adjustments? Is this going so well, we want to do some ordinance updates at that point in time, if it's not a pilot program.
Do we want to share this with the businesses and get their, well, I mean, it's on public right now. They can get their input or ask for their input on these.
I did share this, of course, with the Wilcots who had made the request, and I believe Sean is here. And then Main Street and the Chamber, I haven't gotten any responses back, but they were aware that this was coming to the commission. They've been updated every time this has come to the commission as well.
What do you think, Sean? You like it? Have you read it?
I think the right thing to do is a pilot program. I think it's an opportunity to breathe, we can collect data collectively. And depending on, I've had communication in the past, you know, selfishly, we like the idea, but it has to make sense for the whole downtown community.
Do you understand the
Needs to
permit
come up here
thing?
if he's gonna talk.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to come up here and
Come up here and
to the
talk
mic?
to us. Because they can't hear you, I mean, when they
right.
broadcast this, they won't be able to hear you back there. Thank you.
Do you understand like the permit, do you feel comfortable with the permit thing, like that? I was just worried that business owners won't realize they have to strategically plan how they're gonna do that. Like, you're gonna have to plan out the whole 6 months pretty much if you just get one permit. Otherwise, you're gonna have to pull different
back- go
permits.
back and go back,
Yeah, go
yeah.
back and go back.
So the one concern I have with that is we've talked loosely with some potential partners on this program. And one of the concerns I have is they may not have their calendar laid
Right.
out. So when we go to apply for a permit, for us, with the days that have been selected, Saturday night would be a big one for us. Mondays, for exactly what you've talked about, is another one that we'd be looking at. So we could lay that out, but not knowing, okay, say we find a partner, would say it's a taco truck or something like that. Well, they may only wanna book out a month.
Right.
And
okay.
I have concerns that the 7 will go very quickly,
Yeah, I do too.
so.
And I also concerned about that 20 days because let's say this taco truck that you've been trying to get a hold of, we have an opening. Hey, can we come Saturday night? You can't get a permit because you didn't do 20 days.
Right.
And so you're out.
And so I do see some,
What'd you say?
Well, and it could be, we do have taco trucks that are already licensed, so that could be
Well,
the,
that's
the
true.
good partnerships that I know the Wilcots are wanting to build as well with the community of saying, hey, Wild Cactus, you've got a taco truck, you're licensed, no
that's good.
problem. And some of the
Right.
businesses also, Kona Ice always renews their license every year and they just opened up another one. They typically only do events, but they get a food truck license to be ready.
But I'm not
And
talking
some
about
of
the
those
food truck.
businesses just do that for a food truck license and just so that they could be called
But it
at
says,
any time.
It says 20 days for him, not
So
20 days for
that-
the
yeah,
food truck.
The 20 days was designed to give staff enough time to get police, fire, public works, city, I mean,
Yeah,
that's really
that's
kind of
staffing.
how we review these. This is what we do if we have a special event permit.
Mm-hmm.
So we would probably, that was the time frame to gather the staff necessary. So, I mean, if we think that's too long of a lag time, we could try for 2 weeks. Some of that is, often you'll see us do, okay, well, if we're looking at the regulations, you can't have it within 10 feet, so can you move it? Like, that gives a time to have those kind of conversations, rather than saying, nope, it doesn't work. So that's the alternative, we
Well,
want to shorten the timeframe.
we can be, I mean, obviously you have to have guidelines for a pilot program, but we can be flexible, you know, on things. It's like testing a car out. Well, you can't test it very well if you only put a cup of gas in the tank, you know what I mean? So we need to make adjustments, I'm sure we can as we go. You'll start seeing things in 60 days, I would imagine, kind of like, oh, shoot, we didn't plan for this or something, so. Yeah, I think we can be flexible. I
Yeah.
don't wanna-
I'm just thinking as a planner, like, if somebody calls me last minute, that's really cool, I wanna be able to accommodate, right? But if, shoot, I missed the 20 days, I'm out, I can't do it. But if we're gonna be flexible, then I'd be okay with that.
and when our other establishment, right now, we have barbecue that comes and sets up. And we've been very fortunate that they've been pretty consistent. But for some other businesses that I've heard out of other cities, Topeka specifically, if somebody gets sick on a food truck and hey, I can't make it out for whatever
Right.
reason, or, oh, we ended up having a wedding book, and so we're gonna go cater a wedding, we're not gonna come down tonight.
Then you're out.
In that scenario, I think it'd be nice to be able to say, oh, well, I have my plan, I've got a backup person I can call and say,
Right.
so I didn't know, that was gonna be one of my questions, is it food truck specific for permit, or is it location and date specific for permit, to where if something happens, we have the ability to backfill that role?
As written, it allows the sponsoring business the space for those dates and times for a
Perfect.
food truck. It doesn't
The space is
specify
what we're
who the
looking
food truck
at.
needs
Sure.
to be.
Yeah.
But of course, they all gotta follow the rules too.
Yep,
And
if
that's what Sarah was saying, we already have those license
yep,
places
Got the
filled
list.
that way, and that makes sense.
Yeah, we
Yes.
put out a list every time they renew.
Yeah, the 10 days on that was to make sure we don't suddenly have a truck from out of the city pop up, and they don't have that, they don't have the insurance, they don't know the rules on trash pickup, some of those items, so that was the thought is they
Give
should know
some
10
time.
days in advance so we can make sure they have their permit. So if we wanna say, or existing 2024 permit, and that way that process can go faster, I don't think we have any concerns, but we wanna make sure if we have food trucks parked on the street, they have the insurance, they have
Sure.
the health permits, they've been inspected by fire.
I would bet once you get to know them, you're gonna have the same ones over and over again, so it'll be easier to do once You
Once
to
they
know
get
'em.
permitted.
Yeah, once they're in the system. What days of the week do you have the food truck in Horton?
Up in Holton right now, we have
Holton,
Friday,
sorry.
Saturday.
Friday, Saturday?
Now, our brewery in Holton's not open Sunday, Monday, Tuesday,
Okay,
so
yeah.
that's somewhat of a skewed.
Ah, yeah, because you got to be up there when where the action is. That's interesting. Good.
Would you do a food truck on a Monday, Tuesday here? Would you like that?
So not only from the city standpoint is this gonna be a trial, this will be a trial for us
For you
trying to
too.
understand this market as well. So I can tell you from a business operational standpoint, our original intent was taking our business from Holton, carbon copying, set it down here in Leavenworth.
Right, didn't work.
It is, it's a
It does
different
not work.
community, I'll tell you that.
Right, right.
Doesn't work
So-
that
But like I noticed, the bingo thing on Wednesdays brings in a huge crowd,
Yes, we've been pretty
Yeah,
lucky
that's
with that
cool.
regards.
That is
which
really
is,
cool.
you know, smart. So maybe try it. Maybe the Monday thing will bring in a big crowd with a food truck. So, and again, pilot, so I'm anxious to see how it works too.
There's been some communication, we've had some customers come into the brewery before and ask about Sundays specifically and Mondays. Now, Sundays may have been more around football, basketball timeframe, I don't know. But there has been some feedback around, hey, you know, it'd be nice to have some, because there's limited options even on Sundays
Limited
downtown
options
as
on
well.
Sundays,
Right.
yeah.
So it'll be a trial and error for us
Yeah.
as well.
Well, thanks for playing with us.
Yeah, like we've said before, I think personally, I think it'll be an additional draw to the downtown community. I don't think we're gonna see restaurants be hurt by it personally. I think it'll be more a draw from whether it's South Leavenworth, Lansing coming down or Kansas City coming over. I personally think it'll be an addition for the downtown.
Might inspire some other businesses to open up.
I think so.
Yeah.
I really do.
Might
Have we had
encourage
any
that, yeah.
inquiries from other restaurants? Or other,
Have we had other
Establishments.
requests to park a food truck in the
Yeah.
downtown? Yes, we've seen those over
I
the
mean,
years.
this is getting out there, you can bet, people know about it. And have you recently received, you know, hey, tell me about this?
I've not had any specific businesses reach out to us. I've not had Main Street reach out. I've not had the Chamber reach out.
Yeah.
I think in some ways they've been really in learning mode, sort of open to exploring the concept seems to be the general thought.
They're waiting for us.
I mean, that's why we're looking to try to figure out how we can do this, right? I think that's the question is, there's a general desire to explore the concept, so really this is an attempt to say, how do we do that?
So let me ask a question then, are we good as it stands as a team here?
Yeah.
Just to add that
Yep.
flexibility piece.
Because we don't vote on this, this is your
So,
project that we've already.
The city manager currently has the authority under ordinance to approve food truck parking
Okay.
in city areas. Again, that was very wide, so
Okay.
really this
have
is
to
how
vote
the
on that.
program would function, this is what we will share. I did hear, updating some of the 10 days, so if they have an existing food truck permit, then we wouldn't maybe need to have that. And other than that, I think we'll watch the program as it goes on. And we can always adjust as we need to, but we probably want to come back to the commission. So maybe this is something we do a 3-month update.
Yeah.
As we kind of gain 90
That'd be
days of
good.
experience with the program running and say, hey, did all 7 permits go in the first 24 hours? Has it been only 2 permits and we haven't heard much? I'm curious to learn how this goes as well.
Cool.
Is there a restriction, either large or small, on how big a food truck is? Or is
So,
it, as
yep.
long as it doesn't violate any of the restrictions? for,
Fire
you
trucks.
know-
As written, it's 2 spaces, so yes, I mean, the truck has to fit within the 2 spaces.
Right.
Some of that was a concern not to have extra large trucks that will
Semis,
block
yeah.
something
Sure.
else, because the bigger you get, the more it's gonna block. Was also only having a truck in the road, so sometimes there'll be a truck and something attached, which is really problematic. That's why you see, streets closed for a street event when you park something like that, so this would really just be for a
Awnings and
food
stuff like that.
truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so that's what this would allow. In the future, if we find that the Johnsonville Broads truck wants to come here and that is 100 feet long and we
Yeah, it
wanna
is.
accommodate that, I think we have to explore that differently than this pilot.
The
program.
Wienermobile.
Well, what about small? I mean, what if somebody wants to come and operate their hot dog on wheels, like
Yep.
they used to do?
So that does require a mobile food vendor permit.
No, not the,
Oh, you're
not
talking
the
about
big
the- like in
Wienermobile.
New York, the
I mean,
stands.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
A
cart,
cart.
the
So a
cart.
cart
Yeah.
would not fall into this program.
It's
It must be a
Molly-Man.
truck, it must fit all the other requirements. We wouldn't wanna put anything like that in the street. It's not designed to be in the street. That's where you'd wanna see a road closure. For
Go ahead.
safety.
Sure. Bring this in.
So one idea that I had in here, just from a quick clarification, if somebody wanted to do a one-off, that would currently fit underneath the special event permit anyways, would it not?
Right now, the way we'd look at that is with the road closure. That's how that's been done. So that would run through the
Okay.
special event process. If you want to put a food truck in the street, which is city right of way, it'd go through that process. And usually we've done that with a street closure. It's really a special event, right? Usually it's done in conjunction with something else.
And I was just gonna go back to that limited of 7, say 7 are gone in the first 2 weeks, and then we have an event that somebody says, hey, let's do a Tuesday night. Can I do a special event for just a Tuesday night type of mentality?
Yeah,
Sounds like that's
we're
not an
keeping all
option.
current ordinances in place. So you can still use Haymarket Square. You
Yep.
can still park it on private property, or you can still go through the street event process with the road closure.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like your thinking.
okay. I think it's a good thing, I really do, and I appreciate everybody's interest and
Yeah,
willingness to
absolutely.
consider.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it to us. This is good.
Yep.
Never know until you ask, right?
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sean.
All right, move on to item 4 tonight, Police Department Annual Review. Hey, Chief.
Hand this back to you.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Good evening.
Commissioner. Pleased to be here this evening to present the 2023 annual report. Every year for many, many years, at the conclusion of the year, we put together an annual report that provides a sort of an overview of the things that took place in the previous year. I always use this opening line that the police department just collects an absolute ton of data. And there's a bunch of it available. I did not put it all in the report. I'm not Roberta from finance.
Thank you.
So I bring that to your
Love Roberta.
attention because if there happens to be a question or an issue that you want to ask me that's not contained in the report, I could very likely get that for you. But it's sort of an overview, a synopsis of the things that we get generally from the community, from people that are asking questions and particular attention. And so that's important. The other part of the equation for me is that although we collect a lot of data and there's some value to that data, the other equal part of that to me is how the community feels about public safety. Where do they feel safe? Whether you see these numbers and they're positive, and there's some positive things in there. If your car got stolen, you don't care what these numbers say. You feel less safe. And so we always take that into the equation. That's a little harder to quantify and get tangible results from. But as I travel through the community and I visit with people, I get concerns routed from you to our office and we're looking at things. We sort of take all that into consideration about how we're doing overall. And so this is just sort of part of the equation. So if you would join me, we'll talk about some of the data, some of the information. That's the organizational chart of the police department. If you had any questions about that.
No.
The message from the police chief, a little bit disappointed this year. For the first time in a long time, we had a little bump up in the crime rate. It went up about 3%. There's some positive information that I'll talk about in detail contained in that numbers. But overall, we bumped up just a little bit for the first time in a very, very long time. The primary issue that we're dealing with, like most places, is staffing, is recruiting and retention. We're having trouble, just like everybody, in terms of police and fire and nurses and teachers. We're having that same thing. And so we're doing the best we can, but that's, something we pay particular attention to is trying to remain competitive in the marketplace. And so away we go with some information. If you see here, this is sort of the breakdown. If you see here, this area right here is officer longevity, so we have, probably a quarter of the police department with 2 years or less. It takes a little time for officers to sort of get to that really, really trained, functioning, productive level. If you get into this sort of burgundy category of 3 to 5 or 6 to 9, that's really sort of the core of where you want to be, where you're having the really, really highly trained quality police officers. And so that represents, I think I make the same joke every year, that sort of represents this part of my hair falling out. Younger kids making a few mistakes and don't quite get it right all the time. They got a good heart, it just takes a little time to learn the process. And so, and then the rest of the group up there is broken down. That's mostly the leadership of the police department, your sergeants and your lieutenants and that sort of thing.
How much different is that than last year, chief?
It is just about the same. So I think that the blue number is at 27% last year, and it's 26% this year, just one little small uptick. And so we've seen a little churn in terms of the bottom, folks coming in and leaving and that sort of thing. And so spend a lot of time on that. Annual budget, we put that information in there, so in case folks have questions about how much budget, in terms of the city budget, the police department's budget. One of the core tenets that we have at the police department is community engagement. We spend a lot of time trying to purposely get out into the community and visit with events. This was the Christmas parade, I think, but Coffee with a Cop, our camps, the things that we do really to try and interact with the community in a non-enforcement way always brings value to the organization. Calls for service, and so a call for service is that someone calls the police and says, we need you for something, whatever that is. And so last year, that number bumped up just a tiny bit. About 57 times every 24 hours, someone's calling the police and asking for our assistance. All year, every year, all year long, that's what we get. The blue number represents the actual reports that we take. And so, you know, we play referee sometimes to disturbances that don't result in an arrest or anything like that. When we go there, an EMS call, assisting the fire department, all kinds of things that we do that don't require law enforcement role, but we have quite a bit of that. So those don't all represent criminal reports. Sometimes we just write something down because it was unique or strange or, you know, a little bit interesting that we might need to refer that back to. So that stays pretty steady there for the last 4 years. That's just about what we do, okay? So here's what I will describe as the first set of good news. Crimes are broken down, part 1, part 2. Part 1 crimes are the 7 major crimes. I'll talk about those in just a few minutes. That number is down. And so that's really, really good. Those are the ones that we spend probably the most of our time on. And so as we get through the thing, there's a specific chart that deals with that, but that number's down. So what I will describe generally speaking as the sort of lower level crimes, most of the lower level crimes, those are going up a little bit. For the first time, we haven't had that in a couple of years. But, you know, statistically, it's about the same, but the positive out of that are the more serious things are down, and so that's positive to take away from that. Domestic cases, we spend a considerable amount of our time, about a little more than once every 24 hours, we're responding to a domestic violence call in the community. That generally results in an arrest of somebody, and so you know, those numbers have been down the last few years. I think it went down just a tiny bit this year, but we still spend considerable time on domestic violence. We can't quite make any progress in that regard. Mental health is the other big one that we deal with. You might recall a few months back we came, the Guidance Center and I came, and so we talked about the mental health co-responder program. The Guidance Center has hired someone. Her name is Andrea Kessler. She starts on Monday, the 25th of March. She'll spend about a week at the Guidance Center getting orientation, and then she'll transfer over to the police department on April 1st, and from that time forward, we'll have that person available to us to help 50% of her time generally on mental health. She'll go with us on calls that involve a mental health crisis. If she's available, she'll go with us and have that tool in the tool bag to help deal with and perhaps mitigate, you know, those kinds of emergencies. And the other part of her time will be on the opioid crisis, which is how we talk about that. Right?
I remember very well 2018 and the 218, the highest number.
You know, I think that's probably when we started to really communicate and resonate with elected leaders and officials about funding, and it really, you can kind of see some of the results that started to be a little bit more effective and helpful, so we hope to keep that number down. But we're still once a week, a little more than once a week, out on something that's pretty serious in terms of that. So again, we have a lot of information. This is slide number 11. I think I pointed out to you there's an error on the one that was in the packet. You know, the numbers weren't calculated correctly. That's my fault. And that caused an anxiety attack to make sure there aren't any other errors in the whole thing. So I've been pouring over it for the rest. That sort of represents, again, that's a map of Leavenworth. And so there are districts, patrol zones, part of the community, day, time, gender, race, kind of crime, every conceivable sort of example of crime or data that we track, and this is kind of some of the examples that we use in the report to kind of reflect, you know, where things are happening in the community and that sort of thing. And that was representative of persons crimes. I apologize for that. Criminal activity in terms of persons crimes, again, that sort of part 1, more serious things, again, represents a reduction, so that's a very positive takeaway from that. You know, we like to go back 10 years and kind of see, and so those 4 or 5 years that we've had, numbers have kind of trended down, and that's really, really good and really helpful. This is criminal activity in terms of property crimes. The next slide there. Again, by area, by district, the location of the community, we provide as much information as we can and sort of an overview of the things that are happening and where and what particular crimes and that sort of thing. And I think right here at the far right-hand side is where you start to see the numbers kind of creep up a little bit. Those sort of lower level crimes that we deal with are kind of going up a little bit. And so I'd like to see that number kind of go down if I could spend some time on that. So there's the Part 1 crimes that I'm talking about. Those 7 crimes that are listed on the left right there, those are what we call Part 1 crimes. And those are the 7 big ones that we call. Those numbers have gone down pretty consistently since 2016, and they were down again this year by quite a number. So I'm very happy about that result. Those are ones that capture our attention for obvious reasons. The big ones on the left there. The big one that comes out of there that we struggle with is auto theft. The city of Leavenworth and the Kansas City area and all across the country are really struggling with stolen cars. That happens a lot. There are both organized groups that are involved in that and then individual folks that are involved in that. So law enforcement both here and in the Kansas City area and all across the country are really trying to combat that. You might have heard about the Kia boys in the news, where these are groups that are stealing Kias and Hyundais, almost by the dozen a weekend in major cities. It's a really, really difficult problem. It's a software issue that they figured out how to address that and steal cars easily. And so we're working with the car companies to try and help law enforcement and try and get that. But that's one that you probably might have heard about, sort of a national trend. And that's happened here. We've caught a few fellows up to no good in here in Leavenworth that were the quote-unquote Kia boys, and they're thrown in jail. So, that's here and that's everywhere. Clearances, so about half the time when a crime happens, a serious crime in one of those, we are able to solve it. I would offer to you that there's the higher number than that. We know who it is, we just can't quite prove it. A few more percentage points, I would, lack of cooperation for witnesses or evidence, we're pretty sure who it is. And if there's a crime that happens in town that we don't know who it is, it's probably 1 or 10 or 12 people that I could tell you a list of folks that we're constantly dealing with. And so sometimes we get lucky and make a case anyway. And then the Part 2 crimes there, you kind of see that jump up just a tiny bit there from last year to this year. And that's sort of, we talked about that. Part 2, about 3/4 of the time, we're able to solve those crimes. They're a little bit less in terms of the complication in the case, but a little easier to solve, so a little bit higher clearance rate. Overall, we solve about 6 out of every 10 crimes. That means there was a crime that was committed, we know who it is, we've proved it, we've arrested them, and they're getting prosecuted for those crimes. And so that's probably about the national average. We're pretty close to the national average on that. Here's some stuff about our detective division, how many cases they're assigned, that they're working, they're clearing, again, all kinds of, much information as possible. The arrests, you see there on the far right-hand side, arrests were up a little bit this year. And so that's good news. Just about 1,800 arrests, I think, not quite 1,800 adults and kids. Yes, sir?
How many detectives do you have?
8. We have 1 sergeant and then 8 detectives, so a total of 9. The arrests were up. The 153, keep in mind when we arrest a juvenile, the juvenile detention center was closed a couple of years ago, so that's mostly a referral to the parents that you have to bring your son or daughter to court for some particular violation. If it's a serious felony crime that's dangerous, we take them to the Wyandotte County Juvenile Detention Facility, and we do that about half a dozen times a year. It takes special permission from what they call the JAC group and the judge to take a kid to jail and put them in custody. Shootings or stabbings, something that serious, that's the bar, we're pretty high on that. Mostly it's referring kids and their parents to court. Okay. Keep that number of just about 1,800 in mind as we cycle through the next little portion here. Here's the arrest by area. Again, we break it down by area, by date, by time, whatever question that you might have, I can provide that to you. I think I would do this every year. Don't get skewed by Area 2. Area 2 is where the jail is. So if you get arrested for something else and you go to jail and have a warrant, which happens more than you think, that takes place in the jail. And so that counts as an arrest in that area. So it's not like that area is necessarily more dangerous than any other area. That's just where the jail is. And so we arrested 2 more people there. That looks a little skewed, so I was trying.
In the courthouse.
Thanks for telling me. I was like, wow, maybe we should move.
Right. So you're
should move, yeah.
The northeast part is the busiest, I think. Area 1 is the busiest, and then the southeast part is also the second busiest area. Domestic arrests, again, we spend a lot of time on domestic violence, but it's age, race, gender, location, whatever you need, we can give you. Narcotics enforcement, spend a little time talking about that. That's probably third in line in terms of our attention and resources. In the year 2023, we had 48 overdose calls where a person was completely unconscious and required intervention. 11 cases where a person passed away from that. It is typically either meth and fentanyl or fentanyl and an opioid combination that is causing that. There's been some discussion about the Narcan. That was deployed on November 1st. All police officers have that, have it available. Again, we don't go to all of the calls, and so that's just our numbers. So you should take away from that it's probably higher, because the fire department and EMS go quite a few times. People might walk into the hospital. There may be an overdose where it doesn't get reported because in the drug community, people have their own Narcan now. They're buying it, you can get it over the counter, and so they're using it. So those numbers just reflect us, but they're probably higher than that, and maybe considerably so. We spend a lot of time, we have 2 detectives assigned to drug investigations, and they spend considerable time working on those kinds of cases, trying to arrest them and prosecute them and see to it that they're brought to justice on that.
What's the drug chart? Was that just?
So those are cases we've actually arrested and charged people with. We have a lot more cases that are pending. Sometimes we wait a while for the lab to confirm that what we thought was drugs is drugs and which drug it is, because that can make a difference on the criminal charge that gets, obviously it's weed, that's one thing, but if it's meth or heroin, that depends on, that will depend on what the charge is.
So most meth is the largest drug that you're finding right now?
And that is typically associated with if we arrest somebody for something else, they have a warrant or something like that, it's a small amount in their pocket or something like that that we find, right? But we have those kinds of cases where an officer intervenes, and then we have detectives investigating mid-level dealers that are distributing and dealing the drugs, or those, targeting everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. Traffic accidents, we have about 500 traffic accidents a year in the city of Leavenworth. I think that number is 123 where persons were injured, and so we work quite a bit of that. The citations, this represents all citations. We wrote about 2,300, so somewhere between about 6 or 7 every 24 hours where someone's getting a citation for some particular violation. Traffic citations, again by race and gender, location, time, whatever information that you would want, and something like that. We also put that out there for availability if the public has any interest. Traffic accident locations. The Walmart area continues to plague us. The 29 represents the parking lot. And then the intersection of 10th and Eisenhower is there somewhere as well, I think 12. So that area continues to be the highest location where we have the most traffic accident locations. The high school's up there this year. Kids are struggling a little bit to get used to driving in the parking lot at the high school, and then throughout those areas of the community, mostly it's 4th Street, mostly it's 10th Street, where we're seeing the intersections where people, fairly easy to make.
It's where people run the red lights all the time too.
Right. So we have DUI arrests and alcohol-related arrests. That's part of what we do as well. Any information that you would want on that. Made 29 arrests last year for DUI, people driving, that kind of thing. Any information you might want on that. So we'll turn our attention now to the behavior of the police department in terms of people might complain about us. What we do is what's called a professional standards investigation. Someone complains or there's an issue with an officer. So last year we had 7 complaints. Some of those were from the supervisor. So for example, if an officer is involved in a traffic accident, we automatically review that to make sure that they were behaving themselves in compliance with the law. Somebody will call and complain, an officer was rude to me or cursed at me or shouldn't have arrested me. So we had 7 of those last year. 6 of them, the officer was found to have acted appropriately. There was one occasion in which an officer needed to be reminded by me to behave themselves a little bit better, and so we imposed a little discipline in that particular case. And so that's pretty good. We're pretty busy, and so we don't generate, knock on wood, we don't generate a lot of complaints from folks, but it happens occasionally. Yeah. And then we have what's called bias-based policing complaints. That is specific to the state law that requires we keep those separately. This year, we had one complaint from a female who overstayed her welcome at one of our local hotels by several days without paying. And so they called to ask us to come up and remove her, which we did. There was a little bit of a tussle. And so she complained about use of force. She complained that we violated her religious rights, and she was only arrested because she was a woman. And so that counts. We reviewed that and, found the officers acted appropriately. The person had quite a few issues. And then on the right-hand side is a representation of use of force. So anytime that an officer makes an arrest, if you refer back to the number 1,800 times we arrested someone, of 102 times it was necessary to use force to influence them to go to jail. Some folks are not interested to go in jail, so that was 100 times. That represents about 6% of the time. That's a pretty good number. And those people that we deal with that want to tussle with us and that kind of thing, generally they're the people that we deal with quite a bit. And so we also break that down by the way that the use of force is. So I will just share with you, I think you're well aware that in this last year we had 2 officer-involved shootings that were fatal. That is very rare. Typically, we've had that experience about once every 4 or 5 years. It happens, but last year was, for some reason, particularly unique. Both of those cases were investigated by outside agencies, and one it was the KBI, and the other it was the Platte County Sheriff's Department, because it happened right across the river. You might have seen that both of those cases, the officers were cleared by the prosecutor's office, and so that is included in here, but it's a rare, unique circumstances. This is normal, routine, day-to-day stuff that are fairly minor in nature. Most of it is associated with a little bit of muscling techniques or like an arm bar or something like that. Rarely, we might use our taser or pepper spray. Even if they display their weapon at someone, they're required to complete a report, and then that comes to me. I review all of those. Those also are all reviewed by our body-worn camera. There are very strict provisions about that. We're always concerned about that. Why are we doing that? And given the number of arrests, that's pretty low, comparatively speaking, pretty rare that we have to do that. Yes, sir?
What's the empty end again?
So if I tell you you're under arrest and you say no, and then you lay on the ground and you won't get up and I have to pick you up, or if you pull away, or if you're tussling with me a little bit, I have to do an arm bar or something like that. All just techniques with hands, no baton, no taser, no spray, nothing like that. It's just me and you working it out. Okay? And then, again, we have all the information based on race, gender. We put all that out there so that the folks can get a good sense of how that's all working for us. A little rough out there last year for the officers, 14 times, got punched in the face, spat on, kicked on a few times, so occasionally it's a little rough out there.
No biters, though.
No biting it.
No biting this time. We're usually good for a bite once a year. That's does not go over well, by the way. They don't like that. Being spit on is worse, though. That's the worst. So the other tool that we have, I think I've referred to this before. I don't know what the name of it is. It's very complicated, but I call it the Light Bright, okay? Because I can remember that easily. So this is an analytics tool, right? I used one of our very good officers, Paul Lidnecki. So let's say someone is concerned about an officer's behavior, that he might be picking on someone particularly or have a bias or something like that. What this does, and I can do this anytime that we did a year. So Paul arrested 86 people in that year. If you look here, it is, that is by gender. That breaks it down by gender. So if someone thought he was just arresting female arrestees, we could see that. This is how they were arrested, why they were arrested. It's by race, it's by the location, there's all kinds of ways. Here's age. That is a tool that allows us to evaluate the officer's behavior based on things that might be a red flag. That if we have a problem that we need to worry about, we can run this analytics tool and we can see what the officer's activities are. And so when you take that into consideration with things like the body-worn cameras, the complaints, the reporting, the arrests, the citations, all of those things give us a really, really global view of what the officers are up to in terms of keeping track and making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And if not, I need to know about that so I can either take some corrective action or do something different. But we have this available to us and works very well. The bomb unit, we have a bomb unit. They went out about once a month, a little over once a month. They found 8 explosive devices. Hand grenades, pipe bombs, stuff like that. Some of it was here. They're a regional team, and so some of it was out of town. I think that they had an active role. If you remember, the elected officials were getting the letters with the powder, that kind of thing. I think I reached out to everybody about that. I think they handled about 6 or 8 of those in our region. They turned out to be just powder, but those are the kinds of things that they do. Very, very helpful. The fire department, we dispatch, and so there was about, what does that say, 3,600 calls last year for the fire department. That's how many calls that they went out on last year. Most of those are EMS calls. I think Chief Birch is gonna come visit you with his report, but that's what we ran through dispatch, in terms of that. And then, the other big one is animal control, last little piece here. We had a little over 1,000 animals run through the animal control facility last year for a variety of reasons. We euthanized 28 of those, which represents about 2%. That, for all intents and purposes, is categorized as a no-kill shelter. The number is generally accepted, I think generally less than 5% you can categorize that. Now, we don't call ourselves that, but if we did, that's pretty good in terms of what they do. We adopted out 306 and transferred 308. That is animals sent to a rescue. Like if we get a husky, it goes to a husky rescue. And so they're doing excellent work down there at the animal control facility. Here's some stuff about, again, how many we handled. There's quite a bit of wildlife in there that we pick up. Alligator last year a guy had an alligator in the 1800 block of Ohio. We had that for a couple weeks. We had that shipped off to Colorado to an alligator rescue place. But yeah, he had an alligator at his
He had a
place.
horse.
What's that?
Had a horse in town.
Yeah, horse.
And
How do you hear about an alligator? Someone said, hey, there's an alligator on the loose, or you went into the house and got it?
I thought it was a person.
I think code enforcement is out there on a code enforcement issue, and they called and said, hey, there's like a 12-foot alligator in the front yard. And so we went out there, and sure enough, there was, so
12-footer?
it was pretty good size, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, are people know how to handle alligators, or did you like call some friends in Florida to?
There was a lot of discussion about that, Commissioner, about who gets to go get the alligator. I think there was a lot of discussion about the SWAT team going to get the alligator.
Right.
So what we believe happened is the gentleman used to own a pet store in town, and then it closed, and so he just kept it. And so
Got bigger and bigger.
it got bigger and bigger, and it was in kind of a secluded area of town, but close enough that it got everyone's attention.
Like
So-
where I used to live.
Right, so we handled that, but we had that and, all kinds of
Spot
stuff.
for that.
Goats, horses.
Do you get any, so what happens when you get I don't know, something that's
Dangerous.
dangerous or like you're not supposed to have?
Right,
Do you guys handle that, or do you have to call in?
depends on what it is, we try and handle most of it. If we need some support from the state will send some people in.
Yeah.
There are,
Like a lion, or I don't
believe
know.
it or not, like private contractors that we might have to call for something specific, but generally we handle all of it, where the state helps us, and collectively we can figure it out.
Any updates on the cats?
But cases, 55 fine cases last
Still
year.
bring up that
Still
subject.
bringing that up.
Don't.
We aren't gonna talk about that tonight.
That's about right, most of it's dogs. And then some enforcement numbers, we wrote probably 164 tickets, running at large, dangerous dogs, stuff like that. The most of the 164, things like you didn't get your rabies done on time, or vaccinations and stuff like that, so, anyway. That concludes the report. Again, I have whatever information that you might ask that you think you want to have, I can get that to you if it's not in there, or some information that maybe you would recommend that we want to put in there, but all in all, pretty good year. A little difficult with the officer-involved shootings, and then we had the death of the young man that passed away unexpectedly. But otherwise, the team is hanging in there doing as good as they can. So.
How short are you on staff now?
So, we have 8 positions open. But we have 4 people that are very close to being hired. Okay? So that will help us, but again, it takes a little while. And then we have the job fair this Friday. This Saturday, we'll have a job fair for a few hours over at the Justice Center. And so, yeah, it's been a little tough for the last few months. A detective has had to work the road a little bit. And then coverage is a little bit difficult if somebody wants to go on vacation. And so we're doing some advanced calculus personnel math to make sure that we're answering all the calls, which we are, and making sure, everything's getting done as best we could. And so we're hanging in there though.
How's it going at Warren, being over there? The Warren knows.
Really good. It's going good, about what we expected. So we spend about an hour over Warren in the morning, every morning when we can, to kind of make sure that the tone is right. That's been going on for a few months. Paul and I met with the superintendent and Amy Sloan and the principal, whose name escapes me right now. But we met 2 weeks ago and kind of had an update.
Oh, good.
So everybody seems happy. We'll continue to do that. They've asked for another SRO there. We just don't have anybody to spare to give them an SRO. We still have the one at the high school, but we're glad to do that. We just don't have anybody to do that. So, but good. It's going well.
Good,
Going well.
good to hear.
And so when an officer transferred to a different department, what is their main reason for leaving?
This year it was money. There was a Johnson County agency that just opened up the wallet and paid them a lot. So we lost 4. One of the young men that went down there came back though in about a month because the environment was significantly different, which is not uncommon. But yeah, that's, we're not able to compete with Johnson County. We're just not. We all know that.
Yeah.
But we're in a better position than we've been in a long time. We've been, paying more than I can remember. And for a while it was working. It's market economics.
Yeah,
the demand is
absolutely.
incredibly high. The supply is not great. Everybody's struggling. And so, when you have entities like that are close to you, that money is not really an object. They really do open up the wallet occasionally. And so, but the benefit is that occasionally they go, well, the money really wasn't all that important to me. Sometimes that still happens, and so we did have that. But it is as lethal as it's ever been. The competition is just really, really high, and you see signing bonuses and all this different stuff that's going on, and so we can't compete on an equal level to that. We do the best we can. And we've done a lot of really, really good things internally. Paul's been very great, Roberta, in terms of structure and stuff like that. So we're keeping up at our pace, at our pace. We were never gonna be able to match them equally, and, that's just the way the world works sometimes, so. We try a lot of things to keep the culture and the environment good so they'll wanna stay, and so sometimes we're successful, but once in a while we just can't compete, so.
Understand?
No, definitely, and that's a tough one, Chief. But for sure, appreciate everybody's attitudes and you guys doing everything you can to keep us all safe this past year and this year.
Appreciate
sure.
it. I'll pass it on. Yes, sir?
Have you gotten all your SUVs? Have they come in already?
Yes, is the answer to that question. But now the backlog is the, what they call the upfit, which is taking all the police lights and sirens and all that stuff on and putting it on the new one.
Okay, so I'm still working.
Because everybody's behind, police, fire, ambulance, all of them are fine. There's a few companies that do that, and so they're backlogged. And so, Sergeant Bogle, who does that for me, I think he said there's a couple that are ready soon. I think there might be halfway done, maybe, Penny, I think.
They're in process.
Yeah, so, they're here, we've gotten over that hump, now it's getting them upfitted with all the stuff that goes in there. So
But it's not keeping you from any patrolling?
No, yeah, we have
Sure.
mostly enough cars.
Good.
Yeah.
Mostly enough.
Cool deal.
Great, no
Well,
other
thank you very much for the
Thank
report.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, that concludes our meeting tonight. We'll go around the horn and Penny, you got
I don't have
anything?
any updates tonight.
Okay, all right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate everybody being here.
Thank you, Chief, that was great. Do we have an Easter egg hunt this weekend?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't seen much advertised on that, so I'm
Yeah,
hoping that
so
we can
I-
get the word out.
I've seen some, on the
It's
sides.
Saturday, isn't it?
Roads.
Saturday?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it is Saturday.
Awesome. And that's at 1
Everything's on
o'clock?
Saturday.
I think it is 1 o'clock.
At
It's
Lawson.
on the Convention and Visitors Bureau website, it's on the City of Leavenworth website.
Okay, thank you. I'll look it up. Thank you. I just want to confirm that we did have that, so hopefully I'll see you all there.
Just wanted to thank everybody for coming out to the St. Patrick's Day Parade. It was wonderful. I've been on that committee almost 40 years now. And I think this was seemed like the easiest, and everybody was so happy. Everybody was happy to be there. It was on a Sunday, which we didn't get, some of the military and others that we usually get, they couldn't be here, but we did have some other out-of-town guests that came in and participated in the parade, and a lot of people downtown watching it. So thank everybody for participating and coming out. It's like the first breath of spring is the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and I always enjoy it. Thank you.
I saw Commissioner Bowder out there. She had her clipboard and she's checking
Directed
things off,
everybody.
while people are like, come on, you're supposed to get in this car so we can go. She had to hand it off to somebody.
I also wanted to say my husband's grandson is here watching our meeting today. And so we're happy to have him here. He's from California.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It is 1 o'clock, the Easter egg hunt, this Saturday, March 23rd. Get your tickets on the Parks and Rec Eventbrite site.
We have to have a ticket.
I think it's by age.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank you.
Bill?
God bless, have a great weekend, and enjoy family and friend time.
And yes, thank you, Commissioner Bowder, for everything you did on Sunday and keeping us all in line. So appreciate it. Everybody had a good time. God bless as well. We'll see you all next week.